Let's visit the 90s all over again. Put on those hammer pants. This is Dope Nostalgia.
I love it. And I found this YouTube show that I'm fucking obsessed with right now. It's hilarious. It was what I was watching last night when I was texting you. It's called Hot Ones, where this guy interviews celebrities while they eat like progressively hotter hot wings. And it's really funny. Like, so they like keep going and like they're having these like really like good conversations, and like it's really entertaining too because the guy, it's on YouTube.
Well, you should watch this after the show.
It's funny. I'll show you a couple. They're 25 minutes long, but the guy that's interviewing them, I really like him. He's a fantastic interviewer. He's just very thoughtful. He's obviously done his research on the people he's talking to, and it's really funny to like see them like kind of go through these progressively hotter hot wings, and they'll get to like there's the one sauce. Every time it gets them, every single time, and like the reactions are freaking golden. Like JD and I literally sat there and watched that for the last 2 nights, and like I was like guttural laughing last night
the
over
things that
like
they're coming up with, man. That's cool.
it's so funny. It's this has been on for like a few years and I didn't even know, right? Like, but it like oh man, it was so funny. Some of the best reactions, like Kevin Hart's, I almost died. I was laughing so hard. They get like really like sweaty and teared up, and it's just so funny. I'll show it to you after.
Yeah, I want to see it after later, like when we're gonna get the crew in here later. But
it's a really good comic relief.
I've been going through. This has to be on this show coming up because the people out there, they need to know. Our listeners need to know. On our Instagram account, I put together a little video where I am begging one of the new kids on the block to come on the show. And this all stems from the time when we first started this podcast. I got to go on CBC Radio Edmonton and talk about it. And they asked me, who would your biggest guest be? Like, who's your dream guest? And I said, well, a new kid. Right? So I made a little clip out of that.
Yeah. Is there a goal? Like you've interviewed some of these people, you've heard some of their stories. Is there kind of an ultimate 90s artist that you really would love to get on the line?
I think the big get would be New Kids on the Block.
Oh, yeah. Who is your favorite new kid, Mark?
Jeremy. Dustin.
Okay, now you're just throwing out names. Who was your favorite, Naomi?
Jordan.
Is that who you'd want to get on the line?
Say Jordan.
Yeah,
okay.
Jordan.
It's definitely a J.
Yeah, Jordan. Well, I mean, I think it's a great idea. There's lots of 90s music lovers out there, and I think it's great you're doing the podcast. Thanks so much for coming in and telling us about it.
It was a blast. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Naomi. Wouldn't it be great if this just really got lit up, this podcast? That'd be so
New
much
Kids on the
fun.
Block. I'm pushing for it. If you have any connections, get a hold of Naomi Carmack. She's the creator and host of the new music podcast, Dope Nostalgia. And you can, of course, get that wherever you get your podcasts. So Apple, Google Play, and the like.
Posted it on Instagram, tagged them all in it, and said, guys, dreams can come true if we work hard. And I'm serious, like it can come true. So I'm like, people tag him, please. And Donnie Wahlberg replied and just said, let's get this.
Yes.
And I was like, holy shit.
Just like fangirling hard.
I was obsessed with New Kids as a preteen, but I'm like, I still love them so much. Like I'm going on this New Kids kick right now where I'm watching all these videos and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I still love you guys.
I always find it funny to go back and like watch old videos from when you were like either a kid or a preteen or whatever that like you just like absolutely loved when you were a kid, and then going back and rewatching it, and you get that like nostalgic vibe, but you're looking at it from like a completely different perspective because you're older.
Here's the thing I was trying to rationalize in my brain. If I look at a picture of Jordan Knight when he's 20 years old, and I look at a picture of him as at 50 years old, I still find him equally attractive. But is it weird because now I'm like 41 and I'm looking at a picture of a 20-year-old and finding him sexy? Is that fucked up? Or is it
No.
just me in my young kid's brain still seeing him the same way?
Well, yeah,
As I
and I
did.
think well that would be no different than like me looking at my wife from like say like we've been together for 20 years and I'm looking at her when she was like, you know, when I first met her
Yeah.
and still finding her attractive even though she's not that age anymore. That's not weird to me because
Okay.
I found her attractive back then, right?
Okay.
And still do, right?
Okay. It's not weird then. All right. I was
It's not
talking to this with our friend Charity yesterday, and I sent her this picture of him and when he was like 20, and I'm like, do you think that's like when you look at him there in this picture, do you see a man or do you see a little Justin Bieber boy? Because when I look at Justin Bieber, I still see a kid.
I think it depends because like if you've seen them from like when they were a kid and you were an adult, it's hard to unsee them that way. That's like you know me looking at my stepdaughter. She's 18. She's legal. She can go and buy booze if she wants to. I still see her as a kid, even though she's technically a legal adult. But I can't unsee that, right?
Yes.
You're always gonna look at them like they're kids.
Yes. That's
Whereas you're always gonna see the people like Jordan Knight as an equal per se, because you know.
well, no matter what in my life, first of all, obviously this is just like a boy band crush thing. Like, but I mean, he's always consistently been 9 years older than me. Right? So, so he's 50 now. And I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck, he can still get it, man. He's still
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I
That's some good fandom right there.
Oh, I know. And I was like lucky that I did get to meet him I think it was 2004. I got to meet him. But he had the flu.
See, oh man, like
And I got the flu like 3 days later. So I was like, I think I got Jordan's flu.
I got Jordan's flu. You know, it's funny because I've often thought about like what would happen if I met like one of my like idols or big like celebrity crushes, and like I like for instance if I met Pink, like I don't think I would be able to talk to her. I don't think anything that would come out of my mouth would even be coherent, let alone like interesting or not embarrassing.
And what is it about the intimidation factor where they make you like when you're facing like these people that you just kind of like freeze up and you just have a tough time being yourself
See,
and just relaxing? You're just like, I'm so afraid that I'm going to say something stupid.
right. I think for me it would be trying to collect my thoughts on what to say to her, right? Because being a fan of somebody for so long, you almost feel like you know them. And I think if you were to try and like explain to them what they mean to you, but you're also very aware that they don't know you,
Yes.
that it makes it very awkward and odd, and then you like start rambling or like that. At least that's what I would think would happen.
And trying
like,
to think of something to say that would be memorable in a good way that would set
And
you apart from what they
meaningful,
hear all
like-
the time. Or like,
because like you
that's-
think of like all of the things that like for me, how much her music has meant to me. Like I literally could tell her that every single album that she's put out, I could find a piece of myself in that album that like helped me get through some of the hardest times of my life. And I could always find that one song on the album that I would be like, I could have wrote that. And like having that such a profound connection to somebody you don't even know.
Yeah.
And then trying to put that into words. Like right now I could probably do that. But then if I was right in front of her, I'd be like, bleh.
it's such an awkward,
Nothing.
like you said, it's a very awkward dynamic to think that here's a person who does not know you from a hole in the wall, but you know them so well, at least what their public persona is.
Right.
And through their songwriting, but you know them so well. They're such a huge part of your life. It's a very strange dynamic.
It is. Yeah. So like, I'm like, I almost don't know if I would ever want to meet, like, well, not, I wouldn't say want, because I'm like, there's always that little bit of want, but I don't know if I ever could meet her and at least not make an ass out of myself. Because, like, man, seeing her in concert, I'm like, that was slightly embarrassing. Thank God it was dark and nobody was watching me.
Oh.
But
It's like a type of social anxiety, I think.
yeah, absolutely. But like, but that's the beauty of music. It connects you to so many different like types of people across the world that like all have a genuine common connection.
Mhm.
And like especially people who put out like really meaningful music. Because sometimes you're going through so much in your life and you don't know how to put it into words, but that person figured it out for you. And then it's like, I'm taking that song as mine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's one thing I just like try to do if I'm writing interviews for this show is try to think of questions that aren't things they hear all the time. Basically, if you can Google search the answer, I don't want to ask that question.
Right.
I want to.
And I think that is what it makes a lot of your shows really interesting, because you do find those questions that might make them take a second to think about it. And oh wow, because the thing is with a lot of those common questions, they're probably just automatically answering it because they've answered it like 15 million times.
Yeah. But then you run the risk of catching them where they like the question, but they're just stumped and they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's fine. That's what I don't want to stump you, but I want you to be more interested in this conversation than just. I was thinking of starting to ask some really weird questions that have nothing to do with their careers. Like, I don't know, something about the 90s. Like, did you ever own a pogo ball? Things like that.
I think honestly throwing some of those in like on occasion just for the hell of it, just for fun, just to
Yeah.
kind of keep things, just
Yeah.
kind of lighthearted,
Talking to
right?
you like a normal person, just like maybe
Yeah.
bond over some like memorabilia or shit that you had that we had, and you're like, no way. That's kind of like the common bond between the celebrity and the non-celebrity,
Yeah.
But all of this was basically pointing to the fact that Donnie Wahlberg responded. It sounds like he was interested and possibly enthusiastic about the idea of talking on the show. And I think that if we could get our listeners to go to my Instagram, go to the dope_nostalgia Instagram page, go to the post and tag Donnie in the post. You can't just like the post because he won't see that. Liking the post is cool for me, but it does nothing to get his attention. But just go in there and be like, yeah, Donnie, we want to see you on the show, and just tag him. Boom. The more he sees that, he'll be interested in coming on. So I do invite our listeners to do that. I remember I posted about this on Facebook that Donnie said, let's get this or let's get it or whatever it was he said. And I had 50 people like my post on Facebook, and maybe 5 of them actually went and tagged him like I had requested. And I'm like, thanks. But that's what you guys got to do if you want to see Donnie on the show. If you want to see Donnie or any of the new kids for that matter, hit up my Instagram, dope_nostalgia. Tag Donnie Wahlberg in the post. That's all you got to do. And he'll see enough of those. Donnie's very busy right now, though. I think it's a busy time for him. He's filming his show right now, Blue Bloods.
Oh yeah, he's probably really busy, not checking like social media that much for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably something he wants to do when it's the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, man, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. Donnie's huge, man. He's a huge star. When do you watch Wahlburgers?
I've never seen Wahlburgers.
I think there's like 10 seasons of it. There's a lot of seasons.
I've heard of it. I've just never. Is it on? It's not on like mainstream like cable TV, right?
I can't remember what network it's on. Oh, it's on A&E.
A&E. Oh, okay. I don't know if I get A&E.
I don't know if they
know.
play.
I never know what I have anymore because it's like I have cable, but then I also have Prime, and then I have Netflix, and then I have Crave, and I'm like, I never know what I'm watching. Like my mom was asking me the other day because she was looking for a movie. I was like, oh, I've seen that movie, and she's like, everywhere I find it, I have to pay for it. I was like, no, I didn't have to pay for it. She's like, well, where'd you watch it? I'm like, I have no idea. I found it one day somewhere. I think it was Netflix. But...
Yeah, all of our media, our visual media is scattered everywhere nowadays. It's hard to know where to find it. But The show isn't running anymore, so I don't know if it's in reruns and on A&E or not. It might be, it might not be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's cool. And like Mark's on it a lot. You get to meet like Donnie's mom. She's really cool. Alma. She's fucking hilarious. Yeah, it's really a good show. But
Nice.
Wahlburgers on A&E, and they had Donnie's mom Alma. They had some of her best recipes from when they were kids, and they have them on the website. So I tried to make one of them. It's this thing called American chop suey, which I had never heard of, but it's kind of like almost like a tomato like beef casserole type thing with like you can put elbow noodles or spiral noodles in it, whatever kind of noodle you like. Some pepper like bell peppers and beef, bacon, like tomatoes. It was really good. I liked
That
it.
sounds pretty good,
It was
actually. Yeah,
super comfort food, basically.
that's awesome.
And,
Have you tried a lot of like different types of cooking in quarantine?
Yeah.
Like having the time? Yeah.
Well, and I did have the time before I got a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying all kinds of stuff. I made for the first time. I made bread successfully for the first time.
That's awesome. Like fresh baked
bread.
bread is like the best.
It's so good. What else did I try to make? Oh, there's tons of stuff. I think I took pictures of everything. I was like, ooh, first time. Yeah.
You made us an apple crisp. That was really tasty.
I think that was my first apple crisp. Yep.
Yeah. That was awesome.
What kind of apples? Yours was really good. Thank you, by the way. What kind of apples?
I was
do you
gonna
guys
ask
use?
him like, did it turn out? We actually got those from JD's friend Summer. She had an apple tree that like it still needed to be like picked at because there was just so many apples still left on it, and she's like, I need somebody to come and take these apples because it's just gonna be bad once like spring hits and they're all on the ground.
Mhm.
So JD and I had some, but we had only used a few of them, and then we didn't have a chance to use the rest of them, and they ended up going bad before we could use them. So we're like, oh, here's an opportunity for us to get more. So it was like right at the end of the season
Yeah.
before it got cold. So like they were sitting in our fridge still, and we were like, it was pretty much like, okay, we need to use these, or these ones are gonna go bad, right?
It's now or never.
It's now or never. We're doing it. So like the one night we made 2 apple pies, and then we had some left over, and we were looking at your dish that you had made your apple crisp in, and we both thought it would be hilarious to give it back to you with an apple crisp.
It was. When I saw it, I was like, oh, you guys, that's really nice. Because I had just literally was about to make one that night. So perfect. Thank you very
It's
much.
like we knew it was like a psychic connection.
I'm going to just
um,
use those apples and make one for when my mom comes over for Christmas. That'll be fine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll eat all of this one.
But
Speaking-
I'm excited to see how those ones taste, because like we haven't tasted those ones yet because we made the apple pies, but they were going to be for Christmas. But
It's very good apples. I want you to take a look behind me here. Do you know what? I don't. It's too dark, but do you know what this thing is here sitting in my kitchen? I don't know.
is
if you
that a
can see-
treadmill?
It's an elliptical.
Oh, sweet,
My sister brought it and her husband brought it over.
sweet.
They have a better one. They gave me their old one. Well, I don't know if it's a give. Like I just need it. I need it now to get less fat.
To get less fat.
Like I'm not going anywhere, so I was like, thank you so much.
That's awesome.
this.
Yeah,
Timing is great.
I'm sad that the gyms are shut down now because I'm like, but you know what? I'm not too concerned because like I had to take some time off when I kind of tweaked my knee a little bit there, and I did not gain or lose any in that 2 weeks that I did not go to the gym. So I was like, okay, I'm still doing okay. I figured I was gonna probably gain some back if my diet wasn't working for me, but it's working. So now I just need to stick to my diet and try and convince myself that I need to work out at home, which is really difficult.
You'd think it would be easy because it's just right. Everything's right there. But to motivate yourself to get up and do it is kind of rough. It can be rough.
Sometimes it's just easier to go somewhere else because like the act of just going there, you're going there with a purpose and you're just like, okay, I'm going to do it. But when you're at home, you're like, yeah, but like, my TV is there and, I'd rather sit and have a beer, or
That's
there's
what I
so many
do.
other things that I'd rather do.
Certified alcoholic right here. Fuck. Every day.
Functioning. I like the word functioning.
Well, barely functioning alcoholic. Yeah. I can
Yeah.
work. I felt like crap this morning. I actually went to work late. Who goes to work late? Who works at home
Did you sleep in?
on purpose?
Oh,
My alarm. Yeah, my alarm went off, and I went, well, I'm getting 3-4 hours of sleep a night because I just can't get myself to go to bed early. I'm not tired. It's against my natural rhythm of life. And I have to be up for 7 to start work at 7. And I'm like, this is some bullshit right here because they're all East Coast, right? So it's 9 for them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, this is some crap.
I honestly, I still do the same thing. Like, it's been so 9 months since this whole thing started with COVID, and so I was working early but hosting karaoke, as you know. So I was used to getting up early and then staying up late for karaoke on the days that I was working. But now it's been 9 months where it's just been me going to bed at a decent time and getting up early, and I still have trouble going to sleep at a decent time because I just want to stay awake. I'm like,
Yep.
but this
I'm
is
tired
also
while I'm working. I'm tired at work. I'm
Yeah.
fucking exhausted. I'm falling asleep at the desk.
and then
and
you
then
get
when I'm
that
off work,
second
I'm like-
wind.
I'm like, wait, go all the way till 3 a.m.
Yeah, for me, I just okay, you have to go to sleep. You have to get up in the morning. It's just but I want to be awake. It's there's been nights where I laid in bed almost awake until 1 a.m. for no good reason other than my body has been used to staying up that late for 15 years and getting up the next day. But I'm I got used to not being so permanently exhausted. I'm I do not want to fall back into that because I'm it really is hard to work like that.
It's I admire that. You've been working early for a long time now. So yeah, I'm welcoming you now on the show. Kendra, back with us again, my good friend.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Getting through these crazy times?
Trying to. As everybody is, I'm sure.
Now, before Alana Miles said yes to being on the show, you and I had already had a conversation about putting together an episode about her where you and I were just going to talk about her career.
Yeah, we're both pretty big fans, I think, right? I grew up listening to her. Her self-titled album was one of my favorites growing up.
So we went ahead and, I said, okay, you and I recorded some information about her earlier. And then all of a sudden, I never thought she'd actually respond to the request. And she did. So I thought,
you know what?
She was not, I just thought she was too big to be on the show. I thought she was out of my reach.
I was gonna say, I think it's really hilarious because this is the second time that's happened to us, because the first time you were you should come on the show, you're one of my best friends, I want to let's do a chat, what's one of the bands or people that you want to talk about? And I love Mr. Big, right? Mr. Big is one of my favorite bands, and I was okay, let's do that one. And you're okay, cool, we're gonna do that. And no joke, after we decided that we were gonna do that, you messaged me. It was oh my god, I got Eric Martin and Billy Sheehan. I was
Yeah.
what the hell? I was so excited. And so I found it hilarious this time too, because same thing. I'm I love Alana Miles, let's do it, I'm so down for talking about her. And then a day later you were you're never gonna believe this.
I couldn't believe it myself. And the thing is, I didn't tell anybody about it really, except real close friends, until it actually happened, because I was really scared that it wouldn't happen.
Didn't want to jinx it. Yeah.
I didn't want to jinx it. I didn't want to be telling everybody, hey, got a question for Alana, and then her not actually be on the show. I figured that would make me look kind of incompetent or, so I was I need to make sure it was completed before I went off
done.
and on
Done
social
deal.
media and be it's happened, you guys.
And honestly, what a cool interview. I find she was fascinating. I love listening to her. I think she's so cool. And just so authentically herself, and doesn't give a shit what
Yes.
anybody else thinks.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
interesting, and the stories she had about things that had happened. And she pulls no punches.
Yeah.
She's telling you straightforward how it is, and her thoughts are on things. And I really appreciate that about her. One of the scariest questions I had to ask her, but I really wanted to know, because I've fronted a band for like a decade. And I think one of the things that the band's done now, but I think one of the things that held me back all these years was my fear of telling everybody in the band how I want things to really go, and being the leader and saying, no, we're going to do things this way, or we're not doing it. And I could never do that, because I was always more concerned that I was trying to make everybody happy and let everyone have equal say. And in doing that, I fucked myself over completely.
Yeah.
So my question to her about that was the question, have you ever had basically someone call you a bitch because you were, you know, standing up for yourself, or saying this is the way things are going to be, carving out your own path? How many times did you have to deal with people who would say derogatory things about you because you're a woman being strong, basically?
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of women go through that. Women in powerful positions go through that all the time.
Well, I think, yeah, because dealing with a strong woman, I think some people, like, they like to try and like take them down a notch and make it so that they're not, like, a lot of people are intimidated by it, right? So it's trying to take you down a notch by like, oh well, you're just being a bitch, you know? And I've definitely seen that. Like, maybe not personally, because I definitely am not one to like ruffle a lot of feathers. I'm very diplomatic, but like, I've seen it like with a lot of like friends of mine who are, because like I tend to really be drawn to those really strong women, and who are really like honest and like, you know, pull no punches, because like with those kind of people, especially those kind of women, you know where you stand with them. You never have, there's no guesswork, right? You just, they are authentically themselves, and it's easy to trust those type of people. But like a lot of people, and like, you know, not to be man hating at all, but like sometimes men particularly can be very intimidated by that. And like I don't know, sometimes maybe bruise their ego a little bit, but so yeah, it's kind of a shame that sometimes that happens, where women can be looked at as just being a bitch and not just being strong and standing up for themselves.
Where it's
a double standard.
Man had said the same thing, everybody would be like, oh, I admire how strong and brave he is.
Right.
But when the woman says it, like, why is she being such a bitch? It's like, I'm like, that was my biggest fear when I was the band leader, was that people in my band might be calling me a bitch behind my back. I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I don't recall them ever saying it to my face. But
sometimes it's hard too, like being a woman, if you don't kind of put your foot down and get a little stern, you don't get people who listen to you. And like that's where I can come from, because like I, on many occasions, if I've gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, this is my boundaries, this is where I draw my line, nobody wants to listen to me. And it was always an interesting thing to see, like hosting karaoke, for instance. A lot of people that know me know that I hosted with my wife for a long time. And if you look at the two of us, I am not a very intimidating looking person at all, right? Whereas my wife, she could just give you a look and people will listen to her, right? Like she has
but she's also really kind.
She is very kind, right? But the thing is she also is a very strong woman, and like if she looks at you and says no, people listen. But I come from that like standpoint where people don't want to listen to me. And it takes me having to get to that point where I like would have to scream at somebody, and then I do look like the bitch, right? And then it turns like, then they'll turn around like, man, that chick's a bitch, I never want to come back to her show, kind of thing. It's just like such a double standard. But if a guy were to be in the same position, it wouldn't necessarily be the same.
And I'm hoping now that we live in a world where that's not as common as a place as it once was, that women are feeling more empowered to say and do what they think. It's just a matter of how you're doing it. I mean, for myself, I've taken this opportunity during quarantine or lockdown or whatever to kind of analyze some of my behaviors over the years and realize there's the character flaws that I have that I need to work on. So I'm really doing that now. But in saying that, like, yeah, I need to realize too that it's okay to be strong and go after what I want and not let anyone stop me do from doing
Absolutely.
that. But to do it in a kind manner and not step on people, not hurt people, you know.
But and I think honestly, just it comes from a place of like honesty and like truthfulness. Like if you
not
are,
talk shit about people and
yeah,
not
always,
drop shade and
yeah, that
Yeah.
a level of like honesty and integrity with the way that you go about things. And that's why, like I said before, I really, really am drawn to those types of people that are authentically, unapologetically just who they are, no bullshit, just honest. And because you just always know where you stand with those people. They're not gonna play mind games with you. If they're gonna be truthful with you, sometimes the truth hurts, but you know, if you know them and you know the type of person they are and you know their heart, you know that it's coming from a good place, even if it doesn't always feel good. But like I would rather somebody be honest with me and tell me the truth than to spare my feelings and then go behind my back and say something, right?
Mhm.
And that's honestly what I love, like listening to Alana Miles. Like she really does seem like that type of person. Like she's not going to sugarcoat it for you, but she's coming from a place of like true authenticity and like wanting to just be honest with you for like the sake of whatever it is that she's like wanting you to be better for or whatever, right? Like, and those kind of people are awesome because, you know, like it, I feel like you can grow so much from those type of people.
Oh yeah. One question that I was intimidated to approach would be about her back injury. Because I knew I should bring it up, but I didn't know at what point would be the right time to bring it up. And thankfully she is the one who mentioned it. And that's
Yeah.
when I was able to say, how are you doing with that? Like, you know,
Right.
try to see where she's at right now physically and how she's been dealing with it.
Well,
It's just so
especially-
inspiring how she's dealt with it.
Oh, like and it's
She hasn't let
crazy,
it
like,
stop her.
Well, and like what a crazy injury to get. Like if like honestly, I wasn't keen on the idea of going to a chiropractor before anyways, but like after hearing that story about what happened with her, I'm like, no, it scares me too much. But like
I will not. I mean, I've in the last couple of years I've gone for my hips, but I've never like when he touches my back or if I will not let them touch my neck. Absolutely
Yeah.
refuse.
I have heard of a couple people that have gotten like broken necks from chiropractors, and I just the idea scares the hell out of me. Like that it would take like just the one wrong moment of like, you know, them tweaking you the wrong way, and then like you're completely like life is turned upside down. And I already know what it's like to have an injury that completely turns your life upside down. I don't need any more.
No,
But
Man, my chiropractor's hot though, so I kind of like it.
well, I guess it's a bonus, right? But
I'm kind of into it. Crack me, baby. It's fine.
you could write a song about that.
I suppose I could.
Crack me, baby, one more time.
Crack me, that's gold. I like that.
I actually find it amazing that Alana Miles can still sing with that injury, because like when it comes to singing, tension can be such a difficult thing to deal with. Like, and she's got to have so much tension, like considering that she can't move her neck really, right? And I actually listened to a couple of videos, like live videos, like of her after her injury, and like she still sounds like gold. I'm like, wow.
Oh yeah. Breath
Like,
support was
amazing.
another thing I was wondering if her breath support would be the same, but you don't really hear difficulty with her breath support in her voice. So it's fantastically trained. I mean, also when you're taking a breath to sing though, you're definitely not supposed to let your shoulders rise in the first place.
Yeah, so like
You're supposed
that.
to breathe from your stomach going out. So
Yeah.
in that sense, she should be able to get a decent breath.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like having the looseness up in the top part of your body that would make it really hard to open up. I would find. but she still sounds so good, and I'm like, wow, like what a gift. And like I find it really inspiring that she just chose to adapt. You know, like she could have just been like, okay, well, you know, there goes my singing career. But like, you know, that I think that's super admirable that she wanted to just still keep going and find a way to get through it and still be amazing.
She was very candid about the record company and how in the end she ended up owing them so much money and the bullshit that there's a running theme with a lot of the artists I've talked to about how record companies treated you. It's all just a giant loan and they fuck you with it because
Yeah.
there's one chat I had where he said, yeah, they would like order us to the studio while we're recording. They'd order us like lobster dinners and alcohol and all this great stuff. And they're like, oh, it's the record company's paying for it. No problem. Well, in fact, the band is paying for it in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just tacking it onto the tab.
Yeah. I've heard a bunch of stories like that too. I actually just watched what was it? It was a documentary about the boy bands from like the 90s, like so like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and how they got kind of screwed over in the same sort of vibe, right? Like
their contracts with Lou Pearlman were garbage.
They were garbage, and I was just like, man, like they worked their asses off. They were working like 18-hour days, like practicing and like choreography and interviews and all of these things and not seeing their family and working through holidays. And at the end of the year, they got something like $10,000 for the year. I was like, wow, you can make more at Starbucks.
I gotta say, yeah, both those bands got screwed over, especially, well, I know NSYNC did for sure because they took their careers back and when they put out No Strings Attached, because they were worried that they had no support going into that after they had been to the court and everything, but they blew up bigger than ever from it and everything was fine.
Yeah.
What was I gonna
But
say?
there's lots of artists that never did come back. I heard, if I'm correct, I heard that like Toni Braxton went through the same thing and she never really got, I think, the career that she deserved because she's phenomenal.
I think when you're young and you're eager and you're hungry to be a star, I wonder how closely you read your record contract before you sign it, or do you have your own entertainment lawyer to read it over with you and explain to you what it means? Or do you just sign on the dotted line because you're so excited to get your music out there?
I think
would have made
probably that.
I would have probably, if it were me, just signed the contract and let the chips fall where they may. And then once you're successful, you're like, well, why am I making no money? Well, I'd go, well, I fucked myself over. But these people do deserve more because they did all the work and they're the ones that brought the money in.
Yeah, exactly. But I think honestly, that's why there's so many people that are into self-promotion now. Like there's so much that you don't even need a label for, essentially. Like you can literally get the equipment to do your own little home studio and do your own recordings and put it out there. Like
it's a beautiful thing if you already have a name and clout behind it. If you don't have a name, you're just like awash in a sea of everyone doing the same thing. So you have to do something that makes you stand apart.
But you know what? Sometimes too, it's the right place at the right time. Like with anything. Like look at Billie Eilish. Like they blew up over a song that they put out, not even for people to like try and buy their music. So Billie Eilish was a dancer. And with the dance crew or whatever, who she was dancing with, her teacher was like, she knew that she and her brother Phineas did music. So she asked them to do a song for a dance recital or something that they were putting together. And so the teacher had given them like the specific requirements for this song with tempo and everything. And they wrote and recorded Ocean Eyes. And so they put it out on Spotify because that's like they were going to use the song for this dance recital for Billie Eilish. And no joke, like the next day they had over 1,000 listens in like a 24-hour span or something crazy like that. And the song started blowing up, and it wasn't even intended for, like it was put on SoundCloud, actually. That's what it was. It was SoundCloud that it was put on. So it wasn't even put on like a major like streaming site that most people listen to. And then they ended up getting picked up from a label from that. So like it's crazy how if you have something that catches on with people, it could just take off and you didn't even see it coming.
It's true.
And that was that was a few years ago, and she just put out like her debut album like what, last year technically. She had a whole bunch of singles that she had released, but like her like actual debut album didn't come out until like, and then like here they are with like how many Grammys.
It's a very rare success story for Billie
It
Eilish.
is.
And good for her. Like I have a hard time embracing her music. I don't know why. I think it just, I have my mind set in a very certain era, hence why I have this podcast. I feel like the art of the hook is missing, and I'm having a hard time embracing how music is made now. So I need to be a little bit more open to that. But
There's
when somebody like Bruno Mars comes along or Lady Gaga and they bring back those 90s beats and that melody, and I just adore them.
and
I'm
I
stuck
I
there.
could totally see why, because like they definitely have those elements from the 90s that like would totally draw in that like that kind of era, or like the people that listened to that era. I definitely, for myself, I've always been drawn to like the melancholy kind of obscure ballads. Hence why I love Sarah Bareilles so much, because
Yeah.
like she's full of those songs. Same with like Adele. Like
By the way, if anybody ever tells you that they're a Sarah Bareilles fan, there's about a 98% chance that they're a singer themselves. Just saying.
it's true.
Just saying.
She is a like singer's singer. Like anybody who like loves a good challenge when it comes to singing loves her. But she's incredibly talented. Her technique is like
Damn.
damn. Like I try so hard to model myself after her, and it's just not easy. But there's a difference. Like I find with Billie Eilish, her music is like kind of in that same vein. It's very emotional, it's very deep, and like it hits you in a spot like that might take you to those darker places, but you feel better because it's like, wow, like I totally get that feeling. I know how that is. And it's like taking a page out of like a diary or a journal, and like being able to relate to that. So like not having that like really like crazy like hook or whatnot, like I find her music, the whole thing can be just haunting and draw me in that way. But it definitely like it's not necessarily for everybody. It's definitely different music. It's very like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's in its own lane. I don't think there's a whole lot that sounds particularly like it, but
Which
it's
is
very well thought
good
out.
thing, because that's what makes you unique. And then the other people are just trying to copy after that for a while.
Yeah, because like
or back in the day with a record company, they just try to clone you.
right.
We suddenly need like 20 Avril Lavigne's because one did her thing and was anti-pop, and now we need 20 of them.
Yeah, or you know, the Backstreet Boys came out. We got to put out an NSYNC now.
Which was purposely organized and
Yeah,
engineered to create a boy band war.
yeah, the rivalry, like that was
Because
totally
it drove the kids insane, drove the girls out there insane, and it sold more records when you had the two of them vying against each other. And the guys didn't have a problem with each other. They didn't understand why are they supposed to not like each other. They never held it against each other.
Well, when I was like watching the documentary where they were talking about it, they did at one point not like each other because Lou Pearlman had pitted them so badly
right.
against each other.
He would tell them that the other band said this about them and said that
Yeah.
about them when they didn't.
Right.
That's
And
right.
so they did. At one point, they hated each other for no good reason other than the fact that Lou Pearlman was pitting them against each other. I'm like, man, what a shame. Like,
That's
like
dirty pop. That's dirty
ah,
pop.
dirty pop.
Bullshit. Unfair. Now, I was gonna say, going back to the Alana thing, there's some facts about her that people may not know. She hosted a Space Channel series called Beyond.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, She did. Like I would say probably in the early 2000s, I think. And as she talked about the fact that she had owed money to the record company by 2007, according to Wikipedia, she owed the record company $30,000.
Wow.
Now, I don't remember if we talked numbers in the interview. I got to say right now, this to everybody listening, this thing you and I are recording right now, the interview with Alana happened like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So I am going to be hearing it again when I edit it right after this, when I edit it this week. So I know she talked about how the debt racked up, but I don't remember if she threw any numbers in there. So according to Wikipedia, it was 30,000. Her dad was actually instrumental in creating Hockey Night in Canada.
Oh wow, that's kind of that's
Another-
cool.
Another little known
It's
fact.
very very Canadian.
Very Canadian fact.
Uh,
There, I do remember in the interview, she mentioned dating a very famous person, very famous musician.
Yes.
Do you know who that is? I don't think she mentioned his name in the
Is it
interview.
Is it Robert
if you-
Plant? Robert Plant.
Robert Plant. If you go on Google and you Google who she's dated or whatever, you Alana Miles, Robert Plant, there it is.
Could you imagine the duet that they could do? Like, wow. I was looking at like some stuff of like tidbits that like might be interesting about her, and so I knew that Black Velvet was written about Elvis, which I always found interesting that like she did a song about Elvis, but I actually found out the story behind why they wrote a song about Elvis in the first place.
Why?
So her boyfriend at the time was Chris Ward, who is one of the
Yes.
songwriters on Black Velvet, and he was on a bus with a bunch of like Elvis fans, and they're all dressed up as Elvis, and they're going to this like 10th anniversary vigil at Graceland for Elvis. And he was on the bus going to Memphis, and he found it really fascinating that all these people were dressed like that, and decided that he wanted to write a song about Elvis. So then he had gone home and like talked to Alana and the other songwriter David Tyson, and he pitched this idea to them, and they actually wrote the bridge first. That's how it all started, was being a bus full
it
of
was like-
Elvis people.
Every word of every song. That part? Was
Yeah.
the part written first?
Yeah, apparently it was
However,
the bridge.
I don't
Like
recall
the
ever
melody,
writing a bridge
maybe.
first.
I found that really interesting.
Sometimes though, you could write a bridge and you originally intended it to be another part of the song, but
Like
you
a
end up
chorus, and then you're like, this is so abridged. I like
losing-
JD and I have done that so many times where it's like turned something into the bridge that was. But yeah, I found it really interesting. I'm like, could you imagine being on a bus full of people like dressed like Elvis? Like what an interesting story. And then having such an iconic song written afterwards.
And I would have been one of those people who never knew it was a song about Elvis. But when you listen, once you know it's about Elvis and you listen to it,
You can't
you
not
go,
hear it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get it now. All the clues were there. Where the hell? What was I thinking?
Yeah.
They weren't
And I was
very
I-
blatant, actually.
right. And I was like, well, like why Black Velvet for Elvis? Like I know, like how does that even work? And then when I was looking it up, I guess like he had a whole bunch of artwork that was painted of him on like Black Velvet.
Yes.
And apparently he also used like hair dye that was also called Black Velvet. So I was like, wow.
Huh.
Obviously Black Velvet was definitely something that was associated with him. So I was like, wow,
Yeah.
interesting.
Isn't that cool? And
I always
Black
find
Velvet paintings I'd heard about, I think, earlier, but isn't that wild?
Yeah, I always find it really interesting to find out where somebody's head was at or why they wrote a song. I always find it
Yeah.
interesting because like songs can be so widely interpreted, like depending on like your own point of view and like what you get out of it that you connect to. And then
Yeah.
sometimes when you hear what it's actually about, like,
The references were very, I feel like they were blatant, but still metaphorical, where you could still kind of interpret your own like idea of what the song's about.
yeah,
But like when you say "Love Me Tender" leaves them crying in the aisle. Well, yeah, they're painting
Yeah.
a picture of what his success would have been like, and
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
metaphorically speaking.
Such a well written song though. Like when you think of like just those lines, like that line in particular, it's such
And
a good song.
And she's very straight to the point, like we said earlier. That's one thing I appreciated about her very much. So definitely an interesting human being and just a pleasure to talk to. As terrified as I was going into that, I felt pretty at ease into it, probably about 20 minutes into it, I think.
Yeah.
And
As we
that
were
was-
talking earlier about like talking to people that are intimidating, I totally would get that. I was like, I was listening to it when you sent it to me, and I was like, man, I don't even know how she's doing this right now. I would be intimidated to shit. I wouldn't be able to do it, say anything.
yeah.
I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool.
I have it planned out pretty well before I go into it, just in case. The best interviews are the ones that take on their own life and you hardly ever look at your questions because they're actually just having a conversation with you and it's just developing organically.
Yeah.
This is the best. But like sometimes you might be in a situation where the person might not be really giving you that much. So you have to dig a little deeper and you have more questions to ask.
Yeah.
Alana Miles isn't one of those people. She had a lot to say. And it was very interesting, all of it. So,
Yeah. Like what a cool lady. Like I'm so happy that you were able to talk to her. I'm like, wow, amazing.
Alana, thank you so much for the time you spend on the show and like all continued success to you. She's got music coming out. And once again, she also said, if you're looking to support her and buy her music, make sure you're buying the versions that actually support her. Don't be buying the original record company versions. She's re-released all her stuff so that she can actually profit off of it, which is how it should be. So make sure you're looking for that. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
It is December 24th, so I hope everybody has a blessed holiday season, no matter where you are and what you're dealing with. Let's just hope for a better new year, hey? 2021.
Yeah,
We got a vaccine
Pause.
now.
Yeah.
William
positive-
Shakespeare's already had the
positive all the way
vaccine.
through.
William Shakespeare
William
already
Shakespeare.
had the vaccine. So
He was like what, the second person to get it, I think.
yeah, he was in the first day, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there you go. UK started first. No, Russia apparently started first.
Oh, did they? Yeah, I heard about the UK.
Russia has their own vaccine. They don't need our vaccine, apparently.
La-di-da.
So yeah, I ain't no conspiracy theorist when it comes to this. I'm like, just get it in me. I want that fucking vaccine.
I just
want
want
my
things to
life
be back
back.
to normal.
I
Oh my
want my life
god.
back.
Like this whole idea of new normal. This better not be new normal. I don't want this.
I don't think it's going to be an overnight change back to normal. I think it's going to take time because there's going to be a lot of people who are resistant to change and the vaccine. I mean, to each their own, but in this kind of situation, I don't like to talk about this kind of thing too much or get political or anything on the show because this is a happy, fun time show. And not everyone's going to agree, but if we can at least agree to disagree in a kind way and be kind to one another and not be so damn selfish. This isn't about you. This is about your grandmother and your mother and your dad. And that's really, and the people who aren't, some people don't know they're not able to fend it off for themselves. They don't know that they might have an underlying condition.
Right.
So if you think this is all a fucking hoax, well, good for you. But I already know people who've been very ill from it.
I have known a
This is
few
no-
people who have died from it, so
This
it's
is no joke.
definitely very real. It's very real.
But anyways, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks again, Kendra.
Thanks for having me. I love being on the show.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Follow us on Facebook at Dope Nostalgia, Instagram Dope_Nostalgia, or on Twitter at Nostalgia Dope.
This podcast is licensed by SOCAN because we believe that artists should be paid for their work.